ground. You took the fall and thought of me above all the ground. You took the fall and thought of me above all.
And Barak said to her, if you will go with me, then I will go. But if you will not go with me, I will not go. And she said, I will surely go with you. Nevertheless, the trip you take will not be for your glory, for the Lord will sell Sisera into the hand of a woman. And Deborah arose and went with Barak to Kadesh. Praise the Lord. Like I said, I'm not going to be saying much. I'm just going to talk a little bit about the life of Deborah. Because the women in this ministry are called the Deborah generation. Praise the Lord. We are the Deborah generation. And we saw a lot of things in the life of Deborah. Deborah was a woman. She was not just a woman, she was a mother. And she was a wife. Praise the Lord. She was a wife. And you can see the Bible says it was Deborah that came and delivered the people. The Bible says now Deborah, verse 4, a prophetess. So she was a prophetess. So she was actually doing the work of God. Praise God. She had time to do the things of the Lord. So as a woman, because I know in this generation, we have so many excuses, we have so many reasons why we cannot actually function in the house of God. Oh, I have my little children. Oh, my daughter is, in fact, I got a text from one of our members this morning saying, oh, sorry, I can't make it. My daughter is not feeling well. She was here to practice with us yesterday. Praise the Lord. I can't make it. My daughter is not feeling well. Me, myself, I know it's like the flu thing is going around somehow this season, you know. But do you know that sometimes when we make the work of God a priority, sometimes we don't make it a priority. We put it as secondary. When I have time, I will do God's own. I want to do mine first. But what did the Bible say in the book of Matthew? The Bible says, seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and every other thing shall be added unto it. But these days we try to seek our own first, and we now add other things to it. Praise the Lord. Before we now add God's own to it. But when you look at the life of Deborah, Deborah was not so. So the women of this sanctuary, I want to believe that we are not so. Praise the Lord. Amen. I want to believe that we are not so. So there are a lot of things we need to learn from the life of Deborah. Like I said, Deborah was a woman, number one, which we are all women. Not all of us, I know there are some men in our midst today, but I mean talking about the women that are celebrating today. We are women. And the Bible says she was a prophetess, so she actually had time to do the work of God. She had time to minister to people. She had time to prophesy. She had time to take care of people in the house of God. She was not just about herself, her family, her children, her, mine. She had time to minister to people. And she also had time to go to work. Praise God. She had time to help Barak. That is why we are helpmeets. If you go to the Bible in the book of Genesis, the Bible says we are helpmeets to our husbands. So we actually there, that's why I like the saying that says, behind every successful man is a wonderful woman. I use the word wonderful. Because before any man can be successful, I say it and I stand by it. You need a strong-hearted woman to be successful. That is why if you see a man that married a woman that is not, let me say, doesn't have the quality of Deborah in her, that man will not succeed. Praise the Lord. Because as a woman, you should be ready to take up a lot of things before that man can actually succeed. Some men can tell you, oh no, I can do without a woman. No, there are a lot of things that you cannot do without a woman behind you. That's why the Bible says we are helpmates. We help to put everything together. Everything that the man has labored, everything that the man has tried to put, we come and now put everything together and make it work. Praise God. So that is why we are women. And I pray that if you are not yet that kind of woman, that the Lord will strengthen you, that the Lord will lift you up today. After this program, you will not remain the same. The Lord will move you from that position where you are, where you have not been able to influence your generation, to influence your generation in Jesus' name. Amen. And the Bible says she was a judge. So she actually had a profession. She was a judge. She was not just a wife. She was not just a mother. She was not just a prophetess, like doing the things of God, had time to walk in the house of God. She was a judge. So she could actually go and walk like me and you. Because some women today, oh no, I have to go for my, I'm going to come and do morning duty. I'm a nurse. Don't you know I'm a nurse? Don't you know I'm an accountant? I'm a chartered accountant. Deborah was a judge. Praise the Lord. Deborah had time to do the things of God and also had time for the secular world. And she also had time to go to work. May the Lord help us in Jesus' name. And I pray that as we come here today, our life will take a turnaround and will not remain the same in Jesus' name. Praise the Lord. You are all welcome. And as we continue in the service, I pray that you will not miss out in any great thing that the Lord has to do with your life today in Jesus' name. Amen. Hallelujah. Let's give her another hand for that wonderful speech. Deborah generation. So we are all the Deborah generation as we go today. Now the word we hear here will not just go through one ear and go out the other, but that we can follow it. And at the same time, Deborah was humble too. Humility in all the profession, the leadership and everything. She had humility and time for God. May God give us those graces. Amen. I want to call on the women choir now to come on and give us some ministration.
Hallelujah, somebody. I say hallelujah, somebody. I'll wait for the end of the program before the woman give their special night. I want to call Sister give Sister Yuli a round of applause, somebody. Oh, we don't want to keep our guest speaker waiting because of the women career member that are not here today. I was amazed this morning when I heard Sister Lynn say, I am an African, I was born in Uganda. Give the Lord a round of applause, somebody. Amen, somebody. I know a lot about her, but I'm just learning about that this morning. So I have an African as a guest preacher this morning. How wonderful. Now in the book of 2 Chronicles chapter number 18, it's a very interesting story there that I used as a test of preaching several times. There's a prophet by the name of Micaiah. Prophet Micaiah was a prophet that was called to function at a time that there was a lot of apostasy, a lot of occultism, and a lot of deviation from the norms, deviation from the precept that the Bible, the man Moses set for the children of Israel. Everyone was doing everything that was pleasing in his own sight. And Ahab, one of the most despotic kings that Israel had, was supposed to go to the battle of Ramoth Gilead. And he had as his supporter one of the most prominent kings of Judah by the name of Jehoshaphat. And all the prophets were prophesying after this manner, and they prophesied after that manner. And Jehoshaphat, being a sensitive man of God, said, I sense something must be very wrong here. Can't we have a genuine prophet of the Lord that we can seek the counsel of the Lord from him? And Ahab said, there is just one last prophet in the land. He said, but I don't like him. I don't like his prophetic style. I don't like his perception towards me. I don't like even his character. I hate everything about him. And Jehoshaphat said, let's call him. I mean, I believe that that odd one is the one that has the message of the Lord. And they brought Micaiah in, and he said, thus said the Lord, go to Ramoth Gilead. He said, if one army remains with another, the Lord has not called me as a prophet of Israel. And that's what happened. Amen, somebody. We have a Micaiah of our generation today. Would you give the Lord a round of applause, please? Why do I say we have a prophet Micaiah of our own generation? There are several kings and several prophets and several pastors in the land that have compromised their high and holy calling for the purpose of political correctness. So many of them. But I came upon Sister Lynn I think a couple of years ago, first on the 700 Club, and then we're together in the pastor's conference, a pastor's meeting with Pastor Kelvin Cavanaugh of the Cedar Grove Church, and then we're together in Dr. Samuel Wusu's church, Calvary Worship Center, during the sensitization tour, I believe, of the Soji movement. And I said, I didn't know that we have a Canadian version of Paula White of the United States. Amen, somebody. And so I'm so excited. And so when the women were trying to think about who to minister in this conference, I said, I sensed the Spirit of the Lord saying to me that you can bring Paula White. I said, well, she's in the US. How are we going to sponsor her? He said, no, I have another one here. Amen, somebody. And so I suggested to my wife, and she said, that's a wonderful idea. And by the grace of the living God, we are privileged to have Paula White in the assembly today. She's the Canadian version. So please, when she stepped onto the podium, and I know you interviewed Bishop TDJ one time. I think you caught the anointing when you were talking to him. Amen, somebody. So I want, please, ladies and gentlemen, tighten your seatbelt this morning. I am bringing to us an oracle of the living God, a sincere servant of the living God, one who is bold enough in the face of so many compromises to declare the word of the Lord and to say, thus saith the Lord. Would you please rise up on your feet as we celebrate a wonderful woman of God in the assembly this morning? Please help me to welcome Sister Lynn Thompson as the guest speaker for this morning. The Lord bless you.
Thank you so much. Praise God. Praise God. Praise God. I love the presence of the Lord. I thank you for having me here today. When I was a young girl, growing up in Uganda, East Africa, my dad would minister on Sunday nights, and we had to close a little bit early because people had to walk many, many miles to get back home. And I grew up amongst people who were very poor, and I didn't realize it actually because we didn't talk about that. I didn't know till many years later that I was amongst people who were desperate for God. Idi Amin had come into Uganda, and he had killed many of his own people. At the end of his reign, back in the 1970s, he killed over 500,000 of his own people in Uganda. My father, I didn't know till years later, would go down to a river and there would be bodies floating down the river. My parents would not leave until the army came and got my dad one night, and they took him to the jailhouse, and they told my mother, you have 48 hours to leave the country. And so when I got up the next day, I knew my dad wasn't there, but I didn't know where he went. And my mom said, we have to leave. And I said, oh, okay. When will we be back? And she said, I don't know. And I remember feeling in my heart very broken because you see, Masaka, Uganda was my home. I thought I was African. We only had a mirror that was above my head. I didn't even see myself. I would go to school and I got strapped for speaking Ugandan with my friends, by the school, the principal. And so when I left Uganda, that was like leaving my people, and I did not understand that they taught me how to pray. They taught me how to love God. They taught me how to worship. They taught me what was necessary and what we needed to be desperate for. And that desperation has stayed with me. And so you see, I have the spirit of an African warrior princess within me. And so people don't always know how to take me because they think that I am a blonde girl, but they do not understand that I am African on the inside. And when you are African on the inside, you can stand against many things. And I want to tell you my story quickly, so that you know that we are in desperate times in Canada. And I bet you know it more than most, because I think that some people are still asleep. And I will tell you that I do not see the fire of God as I travel across this nation in all churches. I do not see that people are aware of the season and the time that we are in. And when God called Jeremiah, he told him that he was going to bring him, and he was going to set him as a fortified wall against the entire nation. And in Jeremiah 1 verse 17, God said to him, he said, "Get yourself ready. Stand up and say to them whatever I command you, and do not be terrified by them, or I will terrify you before them. Today I have made you a fortified city, an iron pillar, a bronze wall to stand against the whole land, against the kings of the whole land, its officials, its priests, and the people of the land. And they will fight you, but they will not overcome you. For I am with you, and I will rescue you, declares the Lord." About 2 years ago, I was living the perfect life. I want to tell you, I was. You know, the word says that he calls you to live a life above and beyond all you could ask or dream. I lived it. I was there. I was having the time of my life. I had 2 national television shows. I was speaking across North America. I got to do women's conferences in the Bronx. Then they would call me in Florida. I was flying around, telling my story, and I thought life was perfect. I loved Canada. We're free. Raw. God is good. Soon Jesus will come, and we'll just go from one perfect life right straight into heaven. You know? And I just couldn't even see the issue. And I loved it. And then one mother told me, "Have you heard about this program going into the schools? And they're going to tell little boys that they can be a girl, and little girls they can be a boy." I said, "That's ridiculous. Sci-fi. That's fiction. What are you talking about? That can't be true." And she began to show me the resources that were in the schools. And I said, "Oh my goodness." I said, "Well, let's do a show. I have a show. It's called Lynn and Friends. I still have this show. And we'll talk about it, and we'll tell the whole community, and everything will be shut down because this is ridiculous." I had no clue what I was about to face. So when we booked, there was a church that I always shot at. They have a multi-million-dollar church, and they would let me have it for a very good price. I said, "We'll do a show. We'll talk about this ridiculous ideology that has been set up in the land, and we will expose it, and it will be done, and we'll go on our merry way. I will return to my perfect life." And so we let the church know we're going to be doing a taping, and I said, "Why don't we invite the community to come in and hear, so that it's not just on television, it's in the community?" And so we did that. I put it on my Facebook. "Everyone, please come and hear about this Soji program that's going on. And we'll talk about it, and we'll see what we can do." Well, as soon as it went on my Facebook, I didn't realize how popular I was, and apparently some people had noticed that I was talking about it. And so these people, they are LGBTQ activists. They called the church, and they told the church, "If you are going to film this TV show at this church, then we are going to come, we're going to protest your church, we're going to put you in the paper and call you transphobes, homophobes, and bigots." And so the pastor called, and he said, "Lynn, they're saying that you're a transphobe and a homophobe. What is your show about?" And I said, "Well, Pastor, they're going to be telling little children that they can swap their gender out, and I don't think that's right." He goes, "No, that's not right. I'm going to talk to my deacons, and maybe you come in for a meeting." I'm like, "Well, I don't know why we have to have a meeting, right? Aren't we all on the same page?" And okay, yeah, we'll have a meeting. So I got myself and the guest that was going to come and speak about it. Her name's Carrie Simpson. Some of you might have heard of her. Warrior woman. Yeah, you do not want to go up against her in a back alley. And so we go down. We meet with the pastor, and he says, "Okay, I talked to my deacons. We just don't feel that you can do this TV show here." I said, "But, what's the problem?" "Well, they're calling you names." And he said, he says, "We've spent many years making our church a loving and inclusive place, and we want to reach out to the community and let them know how loving we are. And so we can't have this kind of bad press going on." I said, "Okay, but Pastor, who will stand?" And he said, "We're with you. We're with you. Just do it somewhere else." So we called the school. I said, "Thank you very much, sir." So we called the school, and I began to see something's going on in Canada. who will stand? Who will not bow? Something's going on in Canada. So we called school and we said, could we hold this meeting here? We want to do a little taping. They had a very nice facility. We paid $400 down for the use of the facility. We didn't say too much, but I put it on Facebook. And I said, please come, we're going to talk about facility. Please, invested parents, let's do this together. And so I didn't realize I'm very popular. So as soon as things go on my Facebook, everybody seems to notice. I didn't know anyone was watching what I was doing. All of a sudden the school calls us. They said, you are haters, transphobes, bigots, homophobes, and you may not do this trash show in our facility. And so we said, no, we're not. We're just speaking against a resource that is telling little kids that they can swap their gender and have gender affirming surgeries and take hormones the rest of their life and be put into a 40% suicide category. We're just saying that doesn't seem right. They said, no way are you doing this here. And I began to realize something's wrong. So I can't hold a meeting in a church to talk about this crazy ideology, and I can't hold a meeting in a public sector school that my taxes pay for. I can't do that. So we got smart, and we let my Facebook community know that we're going to hold a meeting somewhere in Langley. And you're going to have to let the Spirit of Almighty God tell you where that is. Except we knew they weren't that in touch, with the Lord. So we did let them know on the night at 6:15 for a 7 o'clock meeting. We said, we put it out. We booked this hall. We didn't even tell them what we're doing. By this time, we couldn't even shoot a TV show because it was terrible lighting and all of that. We just wanted to have a meeting. By this time, I began to see, like Deborah, we're in a bit of a war. We're in a bit of a war. And God is going to give us the victory, but we're going to have to fight. And so we got into this room, and at 6:15, I put out on my Facebook that we are at this hall, get here for 7 o'clock, and by 7 o'clock, we had close to 300 people show up for the first underground meeting in Canada that we had. And my heart that night, as we began to sing, we had protesters, they found us too. I didn't realize I was so popular. And so the protesters came, and I remember we sang, "Oh Canada," and I got choked up. I never got choked up in my life singing "Oh Canada." It's like you sing it at baseball games and hockey games and show up once in a while and you sing, "Oh Canada," great land, and I'm living the perfect life. And as we sing, "Oh Canada," God, keep the land. Glory is great. I had a sense in my heart that I was never, ever going to be saved. Something's wrong. Something's wrong in our land. And so as we presented the facts that night on the curriculum, as we presented the facts from science journals about what is going on, about the unscientific facts that are now being put in all of this, and how we can stand on the Word of God, which says that He created male and female, and He said it is good, and that no one has a right to tell our children anything else, and that parental rights were under assault. As we spoke that night, it was amazing. And the night was fantastic, and we had questions, and we felt that there was something that was happening. I got home that night, and my husband and I, we had gone on to Facebook Live to put the entire event, And since we couldn't, do a show, we'd just stream it. I was so incredibly shocked to find out 14,000 people turned into my Facebook. I was like, wow, I'm so popular. Until I began to read all the comments. And the comments were saying that I was a hater and a homophobe, a transphobe, and all kinds of nasty things that I cannot even repeat. And I sat there reading these comments, and I realized something was wrong. Oh my goodness. There was not a hateful thing said that night. There was a lot of facts. There was a lot of love, in fact. And there was a lot of standing for truth. And there was not hate. There was not bigotry and and nastiness. There was simple truth. And as these people began speaking, I had to make a decision in my heart. Am I going to stand or am I going to bow? Because you see, I, like many of us in Canada, I have approval addiction. You know, Joyce Meyer, she wrote a book, right? Approval addiction. My husband bought it for me. He saw it in Costco. He's like, this is for my wife. Because I want everyone to like me. I grew up like, if people are happy with me, I'm happy. Yay, we can all be friends. I hope you like my dress. I hope you like who I am. I do wear a lot of makeup, but you know, it's all for a good cause, right? Fake nails, fake eyelashes, fake hair. Also, we can be real for Jesus on TV. That was my motto. And I thought, if everyone likes me, then I'm good. And all of a sudden, I got a whole bunch of people. They not only don't like me, they really hate me. And the irony of it all was that the inclusivity crowd was not very inclusive of my beliefs in a sovereign Lord who decides sovereignly whether we will be male or female. And I was undone. And that night I had to decide, will I bow? And I decided, I will not bow. And so I got a little bit more fiery because my African blood inside of me. I got a little bit more fiery, and I said, well, we're going to have to take this on in a bigger way. So I started doing shows after shows. And I began to do meetings all over the place. Some of you may have attended some, I don't know if you did, but we started to do meetings. And I started to stand very strongly. And so the next thing that happened was a person who was a transsexual, Morgan Ogre, he called me and he said, I think I can help you. You're getting a really bad reputation and people are calling you names. I think I can help you to have a better message. So I said, Morgan, that sounds really nice. Let's meet. So we met for dinner. We had a 6-hour dinner. I talked to this transsexual. He explained that he was married, he had 2 children, and then he just felt inside that he was a woman. And so he left his family, and he had his private parts cut off and reshaped. He had his body altered, and he now calls himself the mother of 2. And I said, Morgan, I know God loves you. And I know he designed you with a destiny and a plan. And I'll tell you what, in Canada, we have freedom. It was God who said, choose you this day whom you will see. And you see, we are never responsible for what anybody else chooses. And we can't force anyone to do what God wants them to do. That's God's job to deal with their heart. I'm okay with that. But I said to Morgan, you're free to live as you want, but I want you to know, I believe that Jesus Christ is the way. He is the truth, and he is the life. And I offer you my heart of love, as well as God offers that to you. I said to Morgan, could we agree on something? Could we agree that children are offerings? And I said, I'm going to promise you something now. I'm not going to tell your children, as much as it hurts me, because I do believe that Jesus is the truth. I'm not going to talk to them about something that is within your parental jurisdiction. And I'm asking you for the same respect that you would not advocate for our children to be taught something that does not resonate with our ideology and our worldview. You see, worldview is important in a free society. Some of us in this land are Muslim and Sikh and Jews and Christians and atheists and LGBTQ. And you see, in free society, what our Charter of Rights and Freedoms guarantees is that we have the right to our own conscience and that we have the right to our own belief and religious views. So I'm not going to violate you, Morgan, but I'm asking that you not violate my rights and my children's rights. And he said to me that he would not be able to do that. And that in fact he was going to Ottawa all the time to advocate that parents like myself who do not accept trans ideology would have their children removed from them. He told me that. He said that children needed to be protected from parents. And I have the tweet where he tweeted it out sometime later. I have a whole bunch of tweets. And I realized something, that while I was living my good and perfect life, there were some people that were setting up something in the land and ideology that we must bow to. And if we do not bow to it, then we will be put in the furnace. There's a story, right? Do you know the story? Yeah, in Daniel, the story of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. There was set up a golden idol in their land, and Nebuchadnezzar said, you bow to this. When the music goes off, you bow to this idol, and if you do not, then I am going to put you in the furnace, and you will pay for it with your life. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they had some choices to make. You know, I can picture these young guys like these were real people. They had real lives, just like you and me. They didn't necessarily think it was super cool to lose everything they have, because they simply wouldn't bow. Because what it looks like is they got pointed out, because guess what? Everyone else in the land who were young Jewish people or older Jewish people, they were bowing, because the only one standing up was 3 guys. So they got noticed, and they got hauled up before Nebuchadnezzar. The whole land was bowing. And I wonder, what does it take to be one of those people that will not bow? And I had to begin asking myself when I got attacked in the news media by Morgan Ogler, who later was furious because I went to a school to talk to a couple of teenagers. These teenagers decided that they were not going to go to an out in schools, an LGBTQ class, mandatory class. They decided they were going to skip out. And apparently 100 other students at a school in a mission area decided to skip out as well. So I thought that's kind of a story. I headed down there with my cameraman, that's my husband, and we went down and we talked to these kids. Well, Morgan Ogler, he was livid. He hashtagged me to the police, to Global News, to CTV, to CKNW, and he said this transphobe is talking to young kids, and she shouldn't be talking to these kids without their parental permission, and she's a hater and all of that. Well, I could not help myself at this point, because I have a few tweets inside of me too. So I tweeted back to him and CKNW and CTV and Global, and I stood against the land, and I said, I will not bow. You see, you are mad that I talked to 2 17-year-olds, but you want to tell our 5-year-olds without our permission that they can swap out their genders. I don't think so. And I decided that I would not bow. And so what happened was I got targeted by the LGBTQ. And they began to call my work 700 Club Canada. I was living the dream. I got to fly out to Ontario once a month and shoot 20 shows over 2.5 days, and they paid all my expenses and gave me a good wage, and as I said, I was living the dream. And I was so grateful. I must be special. I mean, God had picked me and chosen me, and out of all of this, and out of the failures in my life, because I do have a book called Relentless Redemption, which is about my complete failure when I was in my 20s and how I was in a 3-year depression. And God redeemed me, and He showed me that His blood and His love covered a multitude of sins, and I was redeemed, and I was set free. I had so much shame in my life, I thought I would never recover. I got a couple books in the back of my trunk of my car if you want that book. But let me tell you that by the time I got to this state, I knew God was my fortress. I knew He was my power. I did not expect that I was going to have to face any more kind of trial, any more kind of fiery furnace. I thought I had arrived. You know, I was going to soar into this, right into eternity, into my 80s and 90s, and all was going to be well. I had the perfect life. And so when they began to target me, they called 700 Club, and my boss from there calls, and she says, well, Lynn, what's going on in BC? And I said, oh, what do you mean? And she said, well, the phones are just lit up. People are saying, you're a transphobe and a homophobe and a bigot and a Hitler. And I don't get the whole Hitler thing because I love the Jews, so it doesn't even fit. And so I'm like, but I'm not. And she says, well, I know what's going on. I said, well, maybe I failed to mention. We have a little crisis going on here in BC, and they're trying to tell little boys, hey, you're wrong. And so I decided that I had to stand up. And she says, well, yes, you do. That doesn't seem right. No. Okay, well, we're going to get a lawyer tell us what to say to people, and that what you do on your time is not reflective of how, what we do. And by the way, would you just take down your pictures of being an office on my car? Could you just take this down for a while until you're done with this? Yes. We have a problem. I don't know why, to me, it made perfect sense that we gotta stand right now or face the fire. And if we gotta face the fire, we gotta face the fire. I don't know why this made sense to me. And I couldn't see anybody standing. I think it was the African blood inside my veins. I think there was something inside my soul. And so I said I would do that, and I took them down. And the LGBTQ, they didn't stop there. They called Vision TV, Joy TV, they lit up their phones. They called the CRTC and began putting in complaints about me being in violation of human rights because I was speaking against gender fluidity being taught to children. The CRTC, they didn't want me ever to be on air anywhere. Then they called all the advertisers of the stations that I was on. Social terrorism. And what I found out was not barely anybody knew that this is what happens. And I didn't know. I'm so glad I didn't know what I was going to face. Because then I would have maybe had to count the cost more, but God was, in His wisdom, He just said, I'm just going to throw you in the deep end, young warrior princess. And let's see if you can, handle it. Let's see if you can. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, when brought before Nebuchadnezzar, Nebuchadnezzar said, I'm going to give you a chance. And did you know that? That he actually, he was willing to say, listen, you've been brought here because you are not complying. You are not bowing to the idol that has been set up. You're not falling into line. You are not being politically correct. And so I want you to have a chance, and you renege on what's just happened here, and everything's going to be fine. I'm going to let you go. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they had to count the cost right there. Like one of them just got a girlfriend, and he was so excited. He was hoping to marry that girl. I mean, the word doesn't say that, but you can picture her, right? One just got a brand new car. One just got a new job. One, just had graduated from school. Was on living the good life. They had lives, right? This is not just a story. And Nebuchadnezzar says, if you do not bow, then we are going to put you in the furnace. And do you know what they said? Praise God. They said, King Nebuchadnezzar, we do not need to defend ourselves before you on this day. If we are thrown into the blazing furnace, the God we serve is able to deliver us. And He will deliver us, in fact, from your majesty's hand. They were always so polite. We don't have to be rude. Your majesty, we simply will obey. But even if God does not rescue us, they said, we want you to know, your majesty, that we will not serve your gods or worship the image of gold that you have seen. They said, we will not do that. And when the LGBTQ then, I have a small charity that I pay for my television show through. When they took my financials and they slapped it up on their Facebook pages and spread it all around, I was all freaked out. I called the accountant. I said, oh no, they put all our stuff up there. She goes, who cares? You pay out all your money to good causes. There's nothing there. But then I was like, okay, fine. I guess that's all right. But I'm sitting at home, and the fire is getting hotter and hotter and hotter. And I'm having to decide before the nobles of the land and all the nation if I will die. It begins to get more public as the assaults come. my tweets are full of horrible things being said. They assaulted, attacked. And I remember going to 700 Club to take the show. And we had to sit down, and somebody was up from the States, and he said, Lord, man, it's been a hard time. I said, yeah. And he said, well, we see you're like an Esther in the land. And for such a time as this, you're called to do this. I said, I feel that. I understand. And they said, well, how long do you think that you'll be, doing this work? And I said, well, how long will they be telling little boys that it's going to be a girl? Because that's about how long I'm going to have to stand. I will not bend. So they said, okay, and I felt I'd been honest, and they left. I never thought another thing about it. I flew to Ontario within about 3 weeks to go and speak at a pastor's conference. I was a keynote, and I had 3 sessions. And the boss met me at the airport, and she said, let's go for dinner. So I said, go for dinner. She's there. She says, oh, Lynn, we love you. We believe in you. We know you're called to this. We know you have to do this. But this is not our calling. And we are going to release you to your anointing to do this. And they released me from my dream job. I went back to my hotel room that night. There's one thing about finally being in a really hot furnace. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were in that service. And when Nebuchadnezzar looked in there, he said, didn't we throw 3 guys in? Because I see a 4th. And he has the appearance like a son of God. You see, when you hit the furnace, there's something really powerful. It's the only time you get to dance. It's the only time you get to feel his breath on your face. And that night in my hotel room, I had lost my job. My reputation's being slimed in public places. They're talking about me on CKNW, calling me a horrible woman. Everything's looking kind of hot. But I felt something. I felt his breath on my face. And I said, I will not go. Because there is only one God that I will bend my knee to on this time that God has given me on this earth. And that will be to my Almighty God, King of Kings, Lord of Lords. I will not bend. The story goes on to say that when Nebuchadnezzar saw that, and he approached the opening and he saw this going on, he said, oh my goodness. He goes, get them out, come out. And so Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they came out of the fire, and the satraps and the prefects and the governors and the royal advisors, they crowded around them, and they saw that the fire had not harmed their bodies, nor was a hair of their head singed. Their robes were not scorched, and there was no smell of fire on them. And then Nebuchadnezzar said, praise be to the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Now this guy can switch teams, right? And so, but he's still crazy, because listen to what he says. He's like, okay, praise be to their God. They trusted in him, and they defied the king's command, and were willing to give up their lives rather than serve or worship any god except their own God. Therefore, Nebuchadnezzar says, I decree that the people of any nation or language who say anything against the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, that they be cut into pieces. He's crazy. He's still crazy. They're going to be cut into pieces, and their houses be turned into piles of rubble, for no other God can save in this way. I'll tell you what, when people begin to see that you're not going to bow to anything, the satraps, the prefects, the governors, and everybody all around you begin to say, wow, they begin to back up. You know what David did when he faced Goliath? He talked to the giant. He talked back to him. He said, you will not destroy me today. You will not feed my flesh to the birds. In fact, you better watch out, because on this very day, I'm going to feed your flesh to the birds, and I'm going to cut off your head. He prophesied what was going to happen to the enemy at that time. So we declare that Soji is going to be removed from every school in British Columbia. And we declare that there will be a righteous return to Parliament. And there will be a righteous return to government. There will be a righteous return, that people will stand up for exactly what God's word says, male and female. And that we will stand against this ideology that has been set up in the land. We are called to stand against the nobles and the kings that are put forth in our nation, and I've decided that's the way it's going to be. And you see, when God gave me all this time with no job, then he began to put a call on my heart to run for Parliament. And so I am running for Member of Parliament. Woo! Praise God. Praise God. In this journey to run for Member of Parliament, I found out something though. I want to tell you just the truth, okay? I'm not here to promote any party, but I want to tell you the truth of what happened. I have always voted Conservative because Conservatives generally have, a godly platform. They stand against these things. But an electoral district association, these are the people that choose candidates in 2 ridings, New Westminster, where I live, and Burnaby South. I put my name before them. The electoral district, they love me. They're like, wow, you are a star candidate. You're media savvy. You're a writer. You're a speaker. You're strong. We love you. They put my name forward. I never heard a word. Instead, they acclaimed another young girl from Ottawa who didn't even live in the riding, who did not fill out the paperwork, who did not get the signatures required, and they just acclaimed her. I wrote a letter. I said, I'm sorry, what happened? Why am I not being accepted? And I never got any comment back. I wrote in the letter, I said, are you not the party that will stand? So then I heard some chatter behind the scenes of people who had talked to the people, and I heard that they said, oh, she's too controversial. She's standing against all that stuff, and we don't want that kind of trouble. We just want smooth sailing, right? We just want to just ignore that, and we're just going to ignore all that. Then I had already paid to be at the convention for the Conservatives. I was so serious. I had invested in Halifax. Halifax on the other side of Canada, they were having a convention. I paid for my flight. I paid for my course, the whole convention, amount. And so I was disappointed that I'd been rejected, but I went. And then I heard them when we were about to vote on abortion. And what happens is that there was about 3,000 Conservatives in one room. You have a little a device where you vote yes or no on an issue. So the issue of abortion was up before the entire group. Do we want to have abortion on the table as an issue and stop this genocide that is going on? And people got up and spoke for and against it. And then the deputy minister, second in command in the Conservative Party, her name is Lisa Raitt, she got up and she said, please do not vote for abortion to be on the table as a platform item, because our leader, Andrew Scheer, has asked us not to. I heard this with my own words, and I remember sitting there and saying, who will stand for righteousness in our nation? Because I thought that this was it. I met people who were good, godly people there, and they were from Burnaby South. And they begged me, will you please run again? Will you put your name forward again? I knew God had called me. Do you know how when God calls you, like you have a sense in your heart that you're supposed to be doing something? It's kind of bizarre, it's kind of weird. I write in my book about how years ago God called me to television while I was holding on in 1999. I had an encounter with God, just folding towels in my living room. I was watching 100 Huntley Street on the TV. The power of the living God came in the room, and I felt him say to my heart, not audibly, just in that voice. I want you to do that. I want you to tell people about Jesus on TV. At that time, I had no education and no experience in television. Do you know that God can call you to the craziest places? And all you have to be doing is wandering. You don't have to go preparing yourself in all kinds of ways. When God calls you, He will equip you, He'll anoint you, He'll empower you, and He wants to call you to greater places than you have ever thought possible. And so in 1999, when I began to do this, I remember telling my mom, my godly mom, like there's God, and then Billy Graham, your pastor, and then my mom, okay? And so my mom's this godly woman, and I said, Mom, God's called me to television. And of course she knew, like, this is a pipe dream. We have nothing that could do this, but she didn't say that. She just said, well, don't give up your typing skills, dear. And you know what my cousins called me? When we had my big 50th birthday party just a couple years ago, 3 years ago. Anyways, so we're at my birthday party. My cousins, do you know what they finally admitted? They called me during that season of my life. This is the word they used for me. Delusional. In 1999, when I knew that God had called me to television, with no experience, no education, they said, she's delusional. How many of you are willing to be just a little delusion to walk in complete obedience to what God would have you to do? I haven't done everything right. I'm kind of a crazy girl. I'm like a butterfly, you know. I love Brian Warren, you know, on the 700 Club. Like, I love that guy. But I know for the first year or two we were working together, which was almost 8 years, I know what he was thinking. He's like, you know, I am like this, you know, man of God, and he has a real powerful anointing. Like when he prays, angels hush to listen. I'm telling you, like I could feel it. Sometimes we'd be on set and we were in front of the camera. I would feel a whisper and a hush behind me right here. And one time I even went like this because I thought, you know, and they're like, why are you like, I'm like, it feels like someone's behind me, but no one was there. It felt like angels just brushed us, you know. But I know what Brian was thinking. He's like, why am I here, stuck with Dory from Finding Nemo? You know, because I was just kind of this butterfly girl. And all I know is the one thing I've been able to do is be obedient. When God asks me to do something tough, I've been willing to be obedient. And God's going to call each of us to do something extraordinary. And maybe He's put a dream in your heart and He said that you can do this. I want you to do this. Your only job is to be obedient. You don't have to figure out the way, the path, or the course. You don't even have to bang on the doors necessarily. God will open the doors before you. You will literally take a step and God will magnificently open doors. So you see, about a year or so ago, when God began to speak to me about being an MP, and I got rejected, it didn't make sense to me about why I was being rejected from the Conservatives. Then they asked me to run in Burnaby South. I said, I'll do it, but I've already been rejected. So I put my name forward again. The EDA, Electoral District Association, they loved me. They put my name higher up. The word came down, no, too controversial. We don't want somebody, you know, who's going to talk against gender fluidity. We don't want that. We just want to sail into the wind next October. Coming up this October, you know, it's a big federal election. It is a game changer. It is a game changer for our nation. It's a game changer. I pray that you all vote. I pray that you do this amazing responsibility, this privilege we have to vote in righteousness to our nation. It's important. It's important. And this October, that's what's happening. So I get rejected again. And I'm like, so surprised. So do you know what I did? I knew God spoke, just like many years ago. So I began saying, well, I'm going to run as an independent. Now, you need a lot of money to do stuff like that. I didn't have that kind of money. I didn't know, what I was going to do. But I got the paperwork. I started filling it out. I started going and getting names that would support me to run against Jagmeet Singh, the NDP leader. Totally pro-LGBTQ, totally pro-trans agenda, totally godless, and much as we can like a person's personality, if they do not stand for righteousness, we cannot say yes on that ballot. And so Jagmeet Singh, of all the places, he chooses Burnaby South to run. And I find myself going, wow, well, I'm going to go as an independent against Jagmeet Singh, and it all seemed to line up. Except, I don't know how I was going to pay for any of this, you know, and how I was going to do it. So somebody says to me, would you be willing to speak to the new party leader of the People's Party of Canada, Maxime Bernier? I said, well, I guess I don't know anything about him. I talked to Maxime Bernier. Within about 4 days, he gave me a call. So this is a brand new party, right? So I'm just going to give you some backstory. And I talked to him. He says, why were you rejected? I mean, why are you a good candidate if you're rejected from another party? Why are you a good candidate? Why should we have you? And I said, well, sir, I stand against gender fluidity being taught to little kids in school. And he goes, what is this? He didn't even know. He's from Quebec. So I said, well, you can tell little boys they can be girls, little girls and little boys. It's totally not right. And he said to me, he said, you can't teach kids that. I said, exactly, sir. Exactly. He goes, all right, send me your resume. Sends my resume through a series of, I had to go through all these interviews, and you know, they looked at everything I write, and I am controversial because I'm always talking about it on my Facebook, and I would not hide it, I would not take it down because I will not die. You don't want me? No problem. I got God. I got backup. I'm an avenger in the name of the living God. And when I walk into any room, I know that I got angelic forces walking with me. And when I go up against a crowd that is full of the demonic, I can just see the demonic trembling. Because I'm with God, and He's with me. And we love Him. And He dances with us. And we feel His breath on our face. And we do not have to fear or worry. And so when I was finally accepted with the People's Party of Canada, it was a complete miracle because actually many people tried to block me even from being accepted. But Maxime Bernier, you know what? He's not politically correct. And he said, this isn't right. Why would we reject someone, a mother who stands in the land? Is unprecedented courage. He runs me as a candidate. Next thing you know, they're flashing my picture across CTV and CBC national. Like I was hated locally, right? Now, I got people nationally calling me a transphobe. And the leader of the party has to go in and answer for this on live television. They're showing my picture, showing me a protest, you know, calling me names, and he had to defend me, and he defended me. And he said, you know what, this is a free country. Our nation was built on freedom, and we have to stand for that freedom. And if we do not stand for that, then we are not a truly democratic society. And we cannot let political correctness run us over. They knew I was pro-life. They mocked me for being pro-life. I ran against Jagmeet Singh, and they said in the papers, they even said, well, she kind of actually cleaned his flock, because I was just operating on the power of the Holy Spirit. You know how Peter was told, don't think of what you're going to say, just like go and say it? Like the Holy Spirit would just give me answers right while I'm in the middle of a political debate, which terrified me. But you see, what God said to Jeremiah was, you do not get terrified before them. Because if you allow yourself to be terrified before them, I will terrify you. And I'm more afraid of God than I am of anybody else. I have the fear of the Lord. And when my daddy says that you got to do something, I'm going to listen to him. Because I've had the smackdown from God already. Have any of you ever had a smackdown in your life? You know, because whom the Lord loves, He disciplines, and I have been greatly disciplined. So I figure He loves me a lot. And if you've been disciplined in your life, it means He loves you. Will you be obedient? Will you be obedient? And I now stand. I'm running with Maxime Bernier. I stood against abortion, and this last very week. The Quebec people, he knows I want to run with a bill in my hand to end late-term abortion, so that, you know, there's no laws on abortion in Canada, none, right? And I have great love and empathy for anyone who's ever gone through that. We have to love. It's a very hard thing to have been in that place and made a decision in that moment. And living with that regret can be very painful. So what we want is we want to love the women. We want to offer forgiveness. We want to offer our kindness and our support to all of that. And we want to help women that find themselves in a place where they might feel they need this. But we want to protect destinies, right? We don't want to be silent. The Word of God has something to say about being silent for those who cannot speak for themselves. And we cannot do it. And so Maxine Bernier knew that I want to run with this bill. He said he supports it. So this, 10 days ago in Quebec, the reporters were after him. Why are you running? Because they know that, I've got this thing going on to stand against abortion. And they're like, what are you going to do? And he says, I'm going to let the democratic process take place. I'm going to, we'll let Canada do what Canada does, which is vote on these kinds of things. They pressed him and pressed him. What's your opinion? What's your opinion? And he said, it doesn't matter what my opinion is. They pressed him and pressed him. Finally, he said, well, I think it's murder to take the life of a child who could be 2 days from being born, or a child that's viable outside the womb. I think it's murder, and it's infanticide. Well, you see, in Canada, we were talking about that. We were talking about this. And so now it's blown up in the mainstream media, and he's been on a lot of media this week, and all he says is, we got to speak up. We got to have a law. A woman can decide a lot earlier than late term. And so there's this kind of courage that's coming. And so I'm running with that party. And I did not think I would be running with anyone but the establishment that we believed in. But the Lord, He's called me to stand against the whole land. One little blonde girl. And I can tell you that I do not feel qualified. I don't feel like I have all the right answers. Like when you start talking budget and fiscal stuff, I start seeing little birdies, flying around my head. And I just pray that there's people that are really gifted in that I can rely on. Because I'm here to stand for righteousness. I'm here to stand for Parliament, to see MPs standing for life. They stood in applause, all of the Liberals and the NDP this week and the Independents. They stood in applause for women to be able to have late-term abortion specifically. They rose in applause to that in our Parliament.
And laid behind a stone, you live to die, rejected and alone, like a rose trampled on the ground. You took the fall and thought of me above all, like a rose trampled on the ground. You took the fall and thought of me